Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to Wildcat Cave. Today, we're going to be going through and ranking the SEC football teams for the 2021 season. We're going to see where your favorite team might stack up and what we can expect from everybody this season. To start, we're going to divide the teams into the SEC East and the SEC West. We're going to look at each, how they rank in their own division, and then we're going to, at the end, put them all together and see who can match up with who and what we can expect out of everybody. We're going to be doing it a little bit different today, guys. We're not going to be doing a numbered list, not a 1 through 14, but instead we're going to be doing them in tiers. What teams are on the same playing field as other teams, who can move up and who can move down. So first, we're going to start by recognizing what teams are in which side. In the SEC West, we have Auburn, Alabama, Arkansas, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. This is typically a strong conference in both basketball and football. Obviously, Alabama being the water carrier for the SEC West and football, and most recently in basketball last year, along with LSU having a couple good seasons as well as Auburn. Arkansas always somewhere in the mix. Texas A&M is coming along strong in football, and then the two Mississippi schools usually somewhere near the middle of the pack. In the SEC East, we have what I would consider a little more balanced. We have Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, Mizzou, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Obviously another strong one. Maybe this conference leans a little heavier towards basketball. Obviously, with Kentucky being the water carrier in that sport, Florida being relevant in both, and Tennessee also being semi-relevant in both. So with that, let's get on with it. We're going to start in the SEC West. I have divided each tier into different categories. Those categories are SEC contenders, challengers, middle of the pack, and then not even close. In the SEC contenders, this is the teams in football specifically that are going to be competing for the SEC title in Atlanta or have that opportunity. Challengers are those teams that may be just a step away or a lucky breakaway. Maybe, the top team has a bad game and loses, and they're able to beat them, and then they will get that trip to Atlanta, much like Florida did last year with Georgia. Middle of the pack, we're going to be looking at those who maybe aren't necessarily in the top tier of their conference, but they're going to be somewhere in the middle. Good, solid teams, probably somewhere near 4-4 in the SEC, and then the guys that aren't even close. These teams have a long way to go. So let's start at the top, guys. In the SEC West, the SEC contender is obviously Alabama. These guys have been strong forever. Last year, they won the national championship, went 13-0 under head coach Nick Saban again. This year, of course, they lose a bunch, but they still return a bunch. They do this every year. They reload every year and come back just as strong. Nick Saban has it figured out. You've seen it recently in his game style, his game planning, that it was 5-10 years ago, all defense. They would maybe score 21 points a game and still contend and win. That's just not the case anymore, guys. The average score in the SEC last year was in the 30s, I believe, or at least the high 20s. Nick Saban has been able to do great things since adopting this new mindset of offense first. Obviously, they're losing Mac Jones. In my opinion, Alabama's always had good quarterbacks, nothing great, nobody that's going to stand out. I know they love to brag about how good Tua is, but let's be honest, guys, he was average at best and below average in the NFL so far. They're good, not going to be great at that position, always going to be strong up front, always going to have good running backs. This year, replacing Mac Jones, they have QB Bryce Young. I believe he's a sophomore, redshirt freshman, sophomore, something like that. He's going to have a big year for these guys again, as all quarterbacks do at Alabama. They're going to have to play some sort of vital role. They're going to be tested early, guys. They have week 1 against Miami and De'Aaron King, who they are saying could be the best quarterback in the nation this year. They're going to have to come out hot. Other than that, their schedule's about what it always is. A couple good SEC games and then a bunch of scrubs. I still see them being the team to come out of the West. I think Auburn's taking a massive step back with a new head coach this year, as well as LSU. So, moving on, we have the challengers in the SEC. This is Texas A&M in the West is the only team I could see truly giving Alabama any sort of game. They finished second in the SEC last year as well. under head coach Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher's really turned this program around, especially since moving into the SEC. They've done a great job, gotten better every year just about. They even stole one from Alabama, if you guys remember when they had Johnny Football there. This year they're returning running back Isaiah Spiller and all of their receivers. They're looking right now, the only real question for them is their quarterback. Who is going to replace Kellen Mond? He was pretty good for them last year. Again, SEC is not necessarily known for putting out top tier quarterbacks. However, you do get the occasional pretty good quarterback, and that's what Kellen Mond was for him. So they have a quarterback competition going on right now. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But as of right now, all things looking up for A&M this year, set and poised to have another good team. They have a good defensive line, a strong defense overall. They're gonna be missing some of their O-line. It's gonna be important for them to rebuild that core, but pretty much everywhere else you're returning a lot of experience and talent. So, moving on to middle of the pack, we're gonna have LSU, Auburn, and Ole Miss. Now, I know there's probably a case for LSU and Auburn specifically to move up. And let me say before I move on, guys, not all of these teams in these tiers are created equal. I don't believe LSU and Ole Miss are equal teams, but I couldn't convince myself to move LSU up to a challenger, or Auburn for that matter, or put Ole Miss not even close. Lane Kiffin has done a good job with Ole Miss so far. They finished 5th in the West last year under Lane Kiffin at 5-5. Not terrible. Their quarterback is returning. They have a veteran O-line. And their defense was bad last year, but they're almost all coming back this year. So I think you can expect to see them step up this year, have their defense be a little better, and maybe make a run at that 4 to 5 spot in the SEC West compared to the, I guess they were 5th last year. But I really think you can see them maybe overtaking Auburn, or if LSU has another down year, take that next jump and then start looking upward from there. As for Auburn, guys, they went 6-5 last year, 6-4 in the SEC, but that was with Gus Malzahn. They have a new coach this year from Boise State, Brian Harsin. I don't know much about this guy. Haven't really heard too much good or bad. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. They're returning Bo Nix this year. Bo Nix was really hot and cold last year. Sometimes he looked like a pro, and sometimes he looked like a true freshman. You just never know what you're going to get out of him. If you can get more consistency with Bo Nix, I'm a lot more confident. But with them not returning Gus Malzahn, and you never know how Bo Nix's progress is going to be, as well as pretty much a whole new coaching staff, it's going to be hard for them, but I still put them in that middle of the pack. I don't think they're good enough to take on A&M just yet, but that's something we're just going to have to wait and see. As far as LSU, guys, we kind of all know what they are. They won the national championship 2 years ago with Joe Burrow. They finished 4th in the SEC last year. They still have that quarterback battle going on. I discussed in my last video, if you want to go watch that. They've lost a lot of guys on defense, but maybe the best player in the SEC this year will be Stingley Jr. from LSU, their DB. He's a ball hawk. He's aggressive. He's physical, and he plays with a very downhill mindset, always making plays all over the field. He is changing from number 24 to number 7 this year, guys. That's not really that important overall, but typically the guy who wears number 7 on LSU's defense is their guy, and they have elected to let him do that this year. So expect for him to have a big year this year, guys. I think LSU, again, not all these teams are created equal. LSU could jump up to a challenger, or Auburn, if they get lucky, could jump up to that challenger level. I just don't think it's going to happen. It is possible, but it's going to take a little bit of luck for them this year. And not even close, guys. You have Mississippi State and Arkansas. I like both of these teams, in all honesty, guys. I really do. You have Mississippi State with Mike Leach and their air raid offense. That when you play that aggressive of a style, guys, you live and die by the sword. When your passing attack is good and your receivers are better than the DBs, it tends to work out well for you. But when it doesn't, it's not good. I expect their offense to be better. They are returning a decent amount of players, but what they gained on offense this year, they're going to lose in defense. So with that, I still think these guys are pretty far away from being anywhere really, really relevant. So I have them down in the not even close. And as far as Arkansas goes, they finished last year sixth in the West at 3-7. They have a new quarterback in KJ Jefferson this year, but they do have a lot returning on both sides of the ball. They have a lot of experience coming back. And head coach Sam Pittman is now in his second year. He did okay. They did better than was probably projected of them last year, but still not great. Like I said, they're returning a lot. If they can have good QB play and actually get a pass rush this year, I think they're looking up. So there's a lot to look forward to in the SEC West. Overall, like I said earlier, typically this is a very top heavy contenders. You'll see when we go to the East, guys, a little bit how much more balanced it is. Where Alabama is so far ahead of everybody else, it's really not that fair. With Texas A&M maybe getting lucky and having a lot more middle of the pack to not close teams. In my opinion, LSU and Auburn are kind of interchangeable where you ever want to put them. If you rank them in numbers, I have them at 3 and 4 in the SEC. It is possible, with LSU being number 3 and Auburn being number 4, it is possible, guys, that is switched and Auburn is better than LSU. But with the new coach and not knowing how Bo Nix is going to play out, we'll just have to see. And at the bottom, we're just going to have to see. I think Arkansas is a better team than Mississippi State. Like I said, not always created equal in these tiers. So I think Ole Miss is probably the worst middle of the pack. Arkansas being better than Mississippi State is the better, not close team. It is conceivable that those teams switch, but when you don't know who's better, I go with the head coach, and I think Lane Kiffin is just better than Sam Pittman, guys. So with that being said, let's move on to the SEC East. Again, our categories are SEC contenders, challengers, middle of the pack, and not even close. Starting with SEC contenders is Georgia, of course. I don't know that without barring some luck that there is anybody else close to getting to Atlanta in this conference, much like Alabama and the others. What we can say about Georgia, guys, they finished second last year with the upsetting loss to Florida. They were 8-2 overall. But this year, guys, I look for Kirby Smart to really get this team back on track. This is probably one of the better teams they've had in a couple years. They have a good, promising O-line. JT Daniels is coming back for his, not debut, but maybe breakout season. Zamir White. They have a solid group of receivers around them. And their defense, with some exceptions, is going to be pretty veteran. There's going to be some new positions and new people coming in, but not to say that they can't replace just as effectively as the guys previous to them. So I think Georgia is going to be your SEC contender coming out of the East this year. In the challengers, guys, I think we have some underrated teams here. I think Florida is going to take a step back a little bit this year compared to last. However, that's not to say that they can't give Georgia a run for their money in a couple of games in the SEC. I think that if Georgia slips up and loses a game that they should win, Florida may have a good enough schedule and may end up owning the tiebreaker to jump in there. Now, along with Florida, you have Kentucky and Mizzou. Kentucky and Mizzou, both very level teams. Again, not always created equal. I think Kentucky and Mizzou are very equal on this challenger line, with Florida being slightly above them. Not to say that neither of them could never beat Florida, because I think Kentucky has a good chance this year. But as of right now, I don't think that Kentucky or Mizzou for that matter, is going to take that spot from Georgia. But there is a world where it could happen if Georgia slips up. Kentucky obviously returning a lot of players. Mark Stoops coming back for, I believe, his 9th year. They look good. They look poised and ready to go. There's still that QB competition with Levis and Gatewood. But other than that, I don't know that there's a team. And obviously they're returning Chris Rodriguez. Other than that, though, I don't know that there's a team that has done better other than maybe Alabama in the transfer portal this year, guys. Kentucky pulled talent from all over the place. There may not be a position on the team that didn't get better this year. Their O-line, as much as they lost, was probably the most depleted last year, has brought back Darian Kennard and the transfer from LSU, Dare Rosenthal. I see them being really good, very underrated this year. And for Mizzou, they finished third last year. Most people have these guys 3 and 4 in the SEC. I think the media poll just came out today that actually has Kentucky above Mizzou, but don't be surprised if Mizzou steals that game in Lexington. That's why that game is going to be so important week 2. Like I said in the last video, their returning quarterback Bazelak and their 2 running backs Beatty and Young. Very good team, guys. Very good defense. That game in week 2 will determine who's truly a contender in the East. By week 5, guys, or week 6, we will know probably how this comes out. With Mizzou playing Kentucky, Kentucky playing Florida, I think we're going to know kind of by then how the challengers really rank between 2, 3, and 4, and how important it is to beat Georgia by week 6 for any of these teams, guys. Coming in the middle of the pack, we have Tennessee and South Carolina. Tennessee has a ton of turnover. They lost 25 or 28 guys, something like that, in the transfer portal this year. Again, they also did pretty good with some guys coming in, but they did lose their coach. They brought in Josh Heupel from UCF. We don't know how that's going to work. It's the first year in a new system. They're going to have growing pains, especially early on. Their schedule doesn't line up great, but I believe by the time in 5 years we may look back and be like, wow, Tennessee might be coming back to prominence, especially guys with the new NIL. That's something everybody keeps forgetting. Tennessee, like Nebraska, is a team that wants to be relevant again. They want to get back to winning national championships, and their fan base wants them to do that, and they have rich donors. There's no doubt in my mind that Tennessee could buy their way back in with these new NIL deals, and their fans essentially funneling money to recruits to get them to come to Tennessee. And in South Carolina, guys, again, probably still a ways off. They got their new head coach, Shane Beamer. He loses a lot this year, mainly on the defensive side of the ball. I don't believe they're going to be as good as Tennessee, but that game could go either way. In 5 years, I think Tennessee comes out ahead, but right now they're kind of on the same playing field, both kind of rebuilding and trying to build their way back up to what they were a couple years ago. And obviously, coming in last place here, guys, is Vanderbilt. Again, I said this in my last video. Vanderbilt will win an SEC game this year, whether that comes against Tennessee or South Carolina or somebody better. I believe they get a win this year. But with that being said, they're still not really close, guys. The program has too much turnover. I don't believe the school is fully invested in their football team, and they have a long way to go. So with that being said, that is how I put the East. Again, a more balanced look in my opinion than the West, but not as top-heavy. I don't believe Georgia is head and shoulders above Florida, Kentucky, and Mizzou. I think they are a little better, but unlike the West, where I don't see anybody overtaking Alabama, I think it's possible here in the East. And again, if I'm not ranking these guys 1 through 7, but just for my reference, I think Florida, Kentucky, and Mizzou could all be toss-up games this year between, whether Florida versus Mizzou, Mizzou versus Kentucky, or Kentucky versus Florida. Any way that shakes out, I think could truly be a toss-up this year. And as far as Tennessee and South Carolina, who is better? Again, I think it's Tennessee because they have the better head coach. When two teams are even, I look at quarterback play and I look at head coach. And in this situation, I think Josh Heupel is just a better head coach. Now, moving on, guys, we're going to look at the SEC as a whole. I added another tier on this one. Instead of 4, there are 5, and those are as follows. National contenders, ranked teams, bowl-worthy, try again next year, and just kind of give up. Starting at the top with national contenders, these are going to be your teams that contend at a national level for national championships. Teams that have a true shot at making the 4-team playoff this year. Teams that will go on to be the pillarheads and represent the SEC as a whole. The ranked teams, this does not mean that I expect these teams to be ranked all season long in the top 25. To me, this is teams that, depending on how their schedule lines up and the games they can and should win, have a chance to be ranked. That doesn't mean they're going to be ranked the whole year. Maybe it's only a week, and then they go into the tough part of their schedule and they drop a couple and they go from maybe a 21 or 22 seed just outside the top 25. That's very possible, but they are still teams that I think deserve or could be ranked this season. Then below that, you have your bowl-worthy teams. These are going to be your 30 through 60 type ranked teams. You're not going to see these guys in the top 25 more than likely, but they should earn a spot in a bowl. The try again next year team, these are going to be your teams that maybe are just a play or two off. Maybe they just had head coaching turnover, and maybe next year you'll see them vie for the bowl-worthy type level. And then the give up are the teams that still have a long way to go before you really consider them bowl worthy. So let's get started with the entire SEC as a whole, guys. At the top, of course, no surprise here, Georgia and Alabama. There is a chance, I believe, Georgia overtakes Alabama this year. They seem to blow it in big game situations at the end of the year when it matters in the championship games to get into the playoffs. We'll just have to see how it shakes out this year, guys. I think Kirby Smart probably has his best team he's had in a long time. So if there's going to be a year, this needs to be it for Georgia. I don't know how much longer their window is open with the SEC East getting stronger and stronger every single season. Alabama, of course, where else are you going to put these guys? They're always ready to go. They're always national contenders. Until that changes, I don't think we'll see them move out of this tier. In the ranked teams, guys, this is probably the biggest section of this pyramid, which tells you how strong the SEC is, that you have this many teams potentially ranked this season. You have Kentucky, Florida, LSU, A&M, and Mizzou. Again, not all equal, guys. I was debating on putting LSU, Mizzou, and Kentucky in this bracket. I think that LSU will probably start ranked. I don't know that they will finish ranked. A&M and Florida should probably stay ranked all year unless they start dropping games we don't believe they should. And then Mizzou and Kentucky, it really is going to depend for them week 2, especially Kentucky, because of how hard the middle of their schedule is. Mizzou's schedule is a little more spread out. They can kind of, I don't want to say afford to lose week 2, but it's not going to hurt them as bad if they lose Kentucky at Kentucky week 2. Because their schedule, they can still string along a good series of wins. As to where Kentucky, if you lose to Mizzou, then you have 2 games, and then you're playing Florida, Georgia, LSU. That's going to be hard to recover from, guys. You're not going to be able to win enough games in a row, I don't think, to lose to Mizzou and then be ranked. However, if they can beat Mizzou week 2, go into Florida 4-0, and maybe even pull that upset and be 5-0, or at least 5-1 before they play Georgia, whether they drop the LSU or Florida game, that gives them a chance to be ranked. As far as LSU goes, they're going to have to bounce back. They're going to have to be back up. They're going to have to finish second in the West probably to Alabama and maybe steal one from A&M. Either way, I think their schedule's strong enough. They're probably going to be ranked at some point. We're just going to have to see if they can stay ranked. Florida and A&M kind of speak for themselves. They should be ranked pretty decent, middle of the pack most of the season, if not a little better. And with that, let's move on to the bowl-worthy teams. Now, this one I really struggled with in my mind, guys, and I'll explain why. Like I've been harping on, guys, not all created equal. The only team I feel is solid in this is Ole Miss. You can move Mississippi State down. You can move Auburn up. I really wanted to put Auburn in the ranked teams, but with the head coaching turnover, you never know how Bo Nix is going to play. I think we're just going to have to see that turn out. Don't be surprised if you see Auburn ranked throughout the year. They're definitely going to start ranked, but I don't know that they're going to stay ranked long enough for it to matter. It's going to depend on how their schedule lays out, I believe. Auburn is a good team. Don't get me wrong. They'll definitely make a bowl game, but are they good enough to stay ranked is the question. I'm just not sure. We'll have to see. Like I said, I really, really wanted to put them in the ranked category because it's Auburn and they should be, but I'm just not sure. Don't be surprised if Auburn should be moved up and either Kentucky, LSU, or Mizzou is moved down by the end of the season. And with Mississippi State, I don't know that they're a bowl-worthy team. I looked at their schedule. They're bordering on the 5 to 6 win season. They're going to have to probably steal one, to be honest, to get into that 6-win bowl-worthy category. But it could happen, and I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt with that aggressive style offense. Now, the try again next year category is going to be Tennessee and Arkansas. We kind of touched on it. Both teams should be coming back to a significant spot in the SEC in their respective conferences or divisions. I believe in a couple years, both of these teams will be bowl worthy, and it will be coming sooner rather than later. However, as of right now, I don't know that it's going to happen this year. It's going to take a little bit of luck for both of them to get to that 6-win threshold. And finally, guys, we have Vandy and South Carolina, two teams farthest away from coming to a bowl. They're just not close right now, especially Vandy. I believe South Carolina is a 3 or 4 win team, so they still have a lot of work to do as well, guys. Again, I didn't rank them in the list, but I have it wrote down for myself. I believe that the numbers 4 through 7, like I said, will be decided by October, which is Florida, Kentucky, LSU, and Mizzou. I believe all those teams are very close. I believe Texas A&M is the best ranked team that I have listed here, with the other 4, and maybe throw Auburn in there, very, very close this year, guys. It's going to come down to a couple games, and we should honestly know by mid-October, probably, mid to late October, depending on bye weeks. We'll kind of know how that shakes out by then. But until then, it's going to be close. Each team is going to be fighting for every win until that point. And then once we kind of see how it shakes out, we'll have a better idea going into November how the SEC is going to lay out for this season. And then at the bottom, the Tennessee, Arkansas, and South Carolina, Mississippi State, those teams are also very close. I see a world where Tennessee and Arkansas could overtake Ole Miss and Mississippi State. I just don't know. We'll have to wait and see, like I said. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you again. If you made it this far, smash that thumbs up, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, throw some comments out. Do you think Auburn should be moved up? Should Kentucky and Mizzou be moved down? How did you all think I ranked them? Was it good? Was it bad? Give me some ideas for some future video, guys. And as always, I'll see you all again next time.